Y'all, I did not want to make this video. I promised myself that for my next video, I was going to leave these content creators alone for a while and upload a different video, but then they dropped a bombshell of the video, and I'm like, well, now I have to address it and I have to make a video. So today I am reacting to Girl Defined yet again. If you have been here on my channel for my last few videos, I have covered the Girl Defined girls quite a bit, so I'm so sorry to be putting you through yet another video about them, but I promise it'll be worth your while. So if you don't know who the Girl Defined girls are, they are two sisters, Bethany and Kristen, who created the Girl Defined YouTube channel and social media platform about like 10 years ago. So they've been on the internet for a long time, and their claim to fame is making content from a very traditional, conservative Christian perspective. Some people call it fundamentalism when you ascribe to a branch of Christianity that is very rigid and very staunch in its beliefs, very black and white, very traditional, very conservative. So Bethany and Kristen ascribe to that version of Christianity, so they would make content about how, you know, women should dress modestly, for example, and they would give tips on how women can cover themselves up, like if they're wearing a top or a dress that's a little too low cut, or, you know, what cardigans you can wear with a sleeveless top or dress, because heaven forbid you show off your bare shoulders to anyone. They would also make content about purity culture, which means, you know, saving yourself for marriage, not even thinking about sex, not doing anything sexual at all.
Don't have sex, because you will get pregnant and die. Don't have sex in the missionary position. Don't have sex standing up. Just don't do it, promise?
They even encouraged their audience to save their first kiss until their wedding day. So needless to say, they are very, very traditional and conservative when it comes to Christianity. So it came as quite a shock to me when Bethany and her husband Dave sat down for a video that they uploaded just yesterday, where they openly and honestly talked about Dave's journey with deconstructing. If you don't know what deconstructing is, that is kind of a new term floating around on the internet, and it basically embodies the idea of people who grew up as Christians taking apart or deconstructing parts of their faith that they no longer find value in, or leaving their Christian background behind altogether and leaving the church and leaving the faith. So Dave openly talks about his journey of deconstructing and how he no longer considers himself a Christian. And you might be thinking, okay, big deal, so what? Her husband isn't a Christian anymore. You know, that happens all the time where Christians leave the church and stuff like that. But it is a big deal considering that only 3 years ago, Bethany made a Girl Defined video with her sister talking about this.
And we want to tell you about these 6 guys that you shouldn't date, court, or marry. Okay, so guy number 1 that you shouldn't date, court, or marry is this: Mr. Talk. Mr. Talk is also known as Mr. Smooth. He's the guy that can say he can talk the talk, but he might not necessarily be walking the walk. So for example, he might say, yeah, I love the Lord. I love going to church. I love getting involved. I love reading my Bible. But behind the scenes, he isn't actually really doing those things. He's not consistently going to church, and he's not consistently reading his Bible. Guy number 6 is Mr. Unsaved. Now, this is the type of guy. He's cute. He's gentlemanly. He's nice. He's charming. He is just like the package deal. Except one problem. He's not a Christian. He is Mr. Unsaved. And now, girls, I don't care how cute he is. I don't care if he is literally like the hottest thing that you've ever seen in your entire life, with the best muscles, whatever it is, you are just like dropping dead in his presence. If he is not a Christian, the Bible makes it very clear that you should not marry him. So this is not like a, well, maybe, I mean, but he's really nice. I mean, but what if he comes to church with me? No. If this guy is not a Christian, if he is a Mr. Unsaved, there is no compromising here. This is an automatic no. And the Bible makes that very, very clear. So Mr. Unsaved is someone that you should never, under any circumstances, no matter what, date, court, or marry.
Not only did Bethany make content like that in the past, she, about a week ago, was featured in a video made by Paul and Morgan, who are her fellow Christian influencers and friends. They have also been on the internet for a long time, Paul and Morgan, and they share similar values with Bethany and Kristen. They are both very conservative and traditional when it comes to Christianity, and so they quickly grew close to the Girl Defined girls. And so with this video, Paul and Morgan wanted to try to humanize their friend Bethany and kind of show a different side of her that people don't always get to see when she makes the Girl Defined content. And there was also a lot of buzz around this video as well. A lot of people weren't happy with it because Paul and Morgan basically pitched it as the kind of video where they were going to ask Bethany, hard-hitting questions, and they were going to talk about the things that they don't agree on and try to see eye to eye on their differences as Christians. But ultimately, it ended up just being an hour-long video allowing Bethany to kind of complain about the haters and the pushback that she gets from her audience. And so I'm going to include like a few snippets here so you can see what I mean.
So I appreciate you guys saying we've grown in this way, but we cannot expect a Girl Defined apology tour.
It's not gonna happen.
All right.
And what does it fix? What does it fix? Right.
What does it fix except for appease the haters, which that's not our goal.
No, they want you on the stake after that. They don't
It's
we
never
will
gonna be
share
enough.
how we've grown
steak.
and changed. Fire. What is it called? The steak.
Oh, no.
The grill. They want you gone.
Burned at the stake.
Yeah, they want you to do what Josh Harris did. They don't just want you to apologize. Yeah. They want you to completely deconstruct and have rainbow flags and do what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
we're not doing that.
No intentions to deconstruct.
No.
From Girl Defined.
Not gonna happen.
So, we're talking about the haters. They say something like, Kristen and Bethany's views are still problematic, and again, these are the hate videos.
Yeah.
Still problematic, but I am seeing progress with them. From my research, I'm seeing a trend of that. How does that make you feel, and is that a good thing that they're saying that?
I don't take that as a compliment. I don't. Well, because what do they want? What is progress to them?
So it's very odd that she created content in the past being so against people, marrying unbelievers. And then she sits down with Dave and makes a video where she openly supports his deconstruction. So I'm not sure what's going on with Bethany here. She's a very interesting character. I think what we're seeing here is someone kind of coming out of a high control group. That's what people call cults or branches of religious organizations where they have high control over their audience members. Mormonism would come to mind, right? Where they literally have a list of people in their congregations and they will send you letters of excommunication if you're not a good Mormon. I have a Mormon friend who has told me about this. So, that's an example of like a high control religious group, and fundamentalism is seen as the same way. So I think what we're seeing is someone who grew up in a high control group kind of coming into their own and kind of thinking things through on their own. And I think that's why Bethany kind of plays like both sides of the fence, where, with Paul and Morgan, she'll be very staunch and very strict and very, fundamentalist. But then here, in this video with Dave that we're about to watch, she's very open-minded and warm and accepting. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and unpack that video together. I just kind of took out a chunk of the hour-long video that they made. So let's go ahead and jump into the video. So just to give some context, what they're talking about at the start of this clip is the video that they made with Paul and Morgan, just to ground you and give you some context. So let's go.
So the bottom line is I had a new level of mental crisis that week that Paul and Morgan were here, and it started before they got here with some random men's group stuff I was doing, and as well as certain questions that I was asking. Even while Paul and Morgan were here, I was asking some people that know me pretty well, what are my greatest weaknesses, and
You were inviting all this criticism.
I was inviting a lot of criticism. I did this thing called, this like hot seat thing where you sit there and these guys kind of like, you stand or sit there, and the guys poke at you and try to kind of get you to get provoked, and then we talk about it. Talk about what comes up.
So it was kind of a rough week before Paul and Morgan got there, because you were like having all this inviting all this criticism into your life, and you were kind of like,
I was grumpy, and then I found one of the things that got me through.
What?
For the first time in 15 years, Billy Joel releases a new song.
Oh yes, that's right.
And it is phenomenal, and I loved it so much.
Maybe you love me, maybe you don't. Maybe you learn to, and maybe you won't.
I was mowing the lawn before Paul and Morgan got here, and I was listening to this song, and I might have been crying, I don't know. And
Because he's a crying man.
Because I'm a crying man. And it's just such a good song if you haven't heard it. And so I was already in that space, and then we had a ton of conversations with Paul and Morgan and with Bethany about all these things. And I have a lot of differences with Paul, Morgan, and Bethany when it comes to just ideologically, values, Christianity, all kinds of stuff. So then we had the dinner table conversation. That was the first day they were here. It's edited, like it was the last thing, but it actually happened earlier.
The first day.
And then
so just for more context, when he says, we had the dinner conversation, so at the end of the video that Paul and Morgan made featuring Bethany and Dave, they all sit down for dinner and they kind of talk about the haters, and it basically becomes Paul and Morgan and Bethany complaining about how they get so much hate from their audience, and Dave kind of pushes back against them and is like, well, is it inconceivable to think that when people are leaving you comments, giving you constructive feedback, they're not hating on you, they're just trying to give you constructive feedback. So it that conversation kind of foreshadows Dave being more open-minded and then eventually coming out as no longer being a Christian like he does in the rest of this video.
So then I had more emotional, issues and crashes and stuff, and it had to do with our marriage, and it had to do with love, and it had to do with faith and God and Jesus and surrender versus pull it together, and just and basically what happened from all that is there's a lot of different points that I won't get into because it takes so long, but what basically happened is I got to this point of I've been circling deconstruction, just to use the term loosely. I'm okay with the term.
I'm not against it.
You're not against it.
I'm not against it at all. I think there's this misconception that I'm against it, but it's more just when you typically hear the term deconstructing, I typically think of someone completely deconstructing from their faith. And yes, I am deconstructing certain parts of my faith, but I personally am still very much a believer in Jesus, and very much think what trying to understand the word and living it out practically is important. So I don't want to be labeled. I don't really care for the label, I guess, but I'm okay with it anyway. Yeah,
and I'm okay with the term for sure, and I'll often use it. I know it's popular, and it's kind of, rings a bell, so it's kind of easy, but there are kind of two different types of deconstruction that I think of when it comes to the popular stuff that is kind of happening in this trend, the trend that's happening. And one is, it's almost like you're consciously deconstructing in the sense of you're actively questioning beliefs and is this true, is that true? And it's almost like you're taking things apart. And then there's the kind of deconstruction where people describe it as pulling a thread, and it's just kind of the whole thing falls apart. It's you're not even going towards everything. It's just kind of everything's sort of crumbling, and then you're just in this crisis mode and nothing's left. And I would say for me, it feels a little bit more towards the first one, but I'm sure there's probably a mix. The things that changed for me through the course of that weekend with Paul and Morgan, and actually we were at Zach and Christian's one night, and there was some conversation.
So that little snippet right there was interesting because in Paul and Morgan's video, Bethany made it very clear that she wasn't cool with deconstruction, that she would never deconstruct. And then here she is saying, well, I'm deconstructing parts of my faith. And I think that's what Christians like her, now she's coming to realize it, but I think that's what Christians like her don't always realize, is that there is nuance to life. She has this all or nothing, black and white, 100% kind of personality, kind of viewpoint. And that can be really limiting, because when it comes to deconstruction, for example, deconstruction doesn't equal leaving your faith. Deconstruction doesn't equal not being a Christian anymore. And I think a lot of people like Bethany, a lot of traditional conservative people when it comes to Christianity don't realize that. They hear a deconstruction and then they think that means I'm losing my religion. That person is losing their religion. Whereas deconstruction can just refer to you taking apart parts of your faith that you no longer find value in and kind of holding them up and being like, okay, do I still find value in this tenet of my faith? No, then I'm going to discard it. And if yes, I do still find value in this tenet of my faith, then I'm going to keep it and I'm going to hold on to it. So again, for example, maybe your version of Christianity that you grew up in taught you to be homophobic and to not embrace people in the LGBTQ plus community. So as you grow older, you might take that part of your faith, you might take that faith, you might take that version of Christianity you were taught, and you might look at it and be like, do I still adhere to these kind of homophobic ideals? No, I don't. But do I still believe that God is love and that God embraces people as they are? Yeah, I do. So I'm going to hold on to my part of the faith that talks about that, but I'm going to let go of the part of my faith that kind of taught me maybe some homophobic ideals, if that makes sense. And in fact, I want to insert here is a clip of Bethany kind of reacting to the word deconstruction and her ideals, and this was taken from the video that she made just a week ago or so with Paul and Morgan, because I think it's very interesting to see how a lot has changed for her in a week. So take a look at this clip.
Well, that's what the haters are hoping for. They want you to be there, so they're like, she's almost there, and then the Christians are like, she's there, she's too far gone.
But like the haters, they would only be happy if it were like a full deconstruction, and then like going out and like hating Girl Defined or making apology videos.
All right, so now let's continue and hear more about Dave's journey with how he is deconstructing.
There, and through the course of all this, and then these moments of like surrendering, trying to just find my identity in Christ and get strength through that, and to be more emotionally stable and all of this stuff. It basically, something broke over that week, and I didn't feel tied down anymore to like basically anything that would keep me from fully questioning my beliefs and my faith when it comes to this stuff. And I even found myself wanting Christianity to not be true, just because of my own personal experiences with trying to have it be real in my own life, and just the disappointment that I found where my perspective, it hasn't really seemed to help me. It hasn't really seemed to make me any more of a better husband or a better man. It seems like when I do other things that are more taking charge of my own development, it seems like I improve more. And then it seems like when I try to find my identity in Christ, it just doesn't seem to work. And so I got to this point where it's like, I hope this isn't true, because I don't want to go through life always having to think I'm the worst in order to find the life in Christ. And that whole thing where it sort of requires you to feel really bad, or to at least admit, you're just sort of nothing and you have nothing, and so that's why you need Jesus, and isn't this such great news? It's like, it's just stopped being good news for me, because it's like, this is basically, if it's not working for me, then the answer is always, well, you really need to know God's love more, or you're not trusting him, or you just need to find your identity in him and rest in that. And so it's like, it just becomes another work, like, oh, I'm not resting enough. Why isn't this working? It's, so there was some frustration there. It's all kinds of stuff. It's not like I've just been in this community where I don't hear influences. It's like, I've known a lot about this stuff.
For sure.
And over time, I've read more books, and I've learned more, and I've seen more, and so, but I felt constrained by myself, my own inability or lack of desire to challenge certain institutions that I'm a part of, or challenge certain communities, because that would throw things into chaos. That would, it would be hard to go to church. It would be hard to be married to Bethany. It would be hard to do a lot of these things. I'm established in Christian communities, so it just makes it, because of my own choice to be in a Christian community, it makes it challenging if I'm going to basically say, hey, I don't think I'm a Christian anymore.
I think that was really poignant what Dave just said about how, the good news, right? The gospel is often called the good news, but it didn't feel like good news to Dave anymore. And I think that's because, not to like question his, deconstruction, like his journey, his faith is his own, but it just makes me sad, because I think Dave, well, I don't think, I know that Dave grew up in a very conservative, traditional, fundamentalist family as well. Hence, why he and Bethany kind of ran in similar circles and eventually found each other and got married and everything. Bethany went on a podcast a little while ago where she opened up about the fact that she did not learn what sex was or sorry, no, she knew what it was, but she didn't know how it worked until she was 20. And the way she found out was she was babysitting at a friend's house, and they had an age-appropriate picture book explaining, the birds and the bees to their kids. And Bethany saw the book and flipped through it, and that's how she learned like the actual mechanics of how sex works. But then she goes on to say in that same episode that Dave, her husband, did not even know what sex was, period, until he was like 18. So that kind of gives a peek into his family life and what kind of environment he grew up in if he did not even learn about sex, period, until he was 18. So yeah, since he came from such a strict version of Christianity, it sounds like that version, unfortunately, leans into what theologians call worm theology. And it's basically the idea of what Dave just said, that in order to be a true Christian, a true believer, you have to view yourself as so lowly, like a worm, before the awesomeness of God. And in fact, I grew up singing this song, and a lot of you might have sung it too if you grew up in a kind of similar conservative, traditional Christian community like I did. And the song had a line in it that says, "You are good, you are good. There is nothing good in me," talking about, our relationship with God. And I can see how someone like Dave, like all of us, right? We all want to believe that we are inherently worthy, which means we are worthy just because it's not what we do. It's not anything we can do to make ourselves worthy. We are just worthy based on the fact that we are humans. And I think a lot of traditional Christians like Bethany and Dave and their families didn't always cultivate that idea that you are worthy, you are important just because you are, and it's nothing you have to do, it's nothing you have to earn, it's just who you are, it's who God created you to be. You are a son or daughter of God, you are created in God's image, like the Bible says. He died for you while you were still a sinner, he sacrificed himself for you while you were still a sinner, and so you are worthy, not based on anything you can do, but just as you are, just because God loves you enough to first have created you, and then two, to have given up his only son to die in your place, right? But when you're not taught that version of Christianity, when you're taught the other version, the worm theology, then yes, you are going to have a low view of yourself.
But over the course of the weekend with Paul and Morgan and with other people, I basically got to a point where it wasn't enough of a reason for me to not take that next step. And for me, it's like just kind of acknowledging all of my questions and doubts just all at once and just being like, actually, I'm not sure this is true. I kind of hope it's not. I say that, but it's like, that's a lot for Bethany to go through.
Yeah. Well,
because I haven't always been honest with her. And when we got married, I'd already started deconstruction. And I'd read quite a lot fewer books when we got married, and had listened to podcasts and stuff, and was already very friendly towards certain forms of progressive Christianity and stuff like that. And when I got married to Bethany, I thought, well, this is going to be a problem because, and I wanted Bethany. I love her. And so at the time I was like, this is just going to cause problems in our relationship. So I was just like, all right, I believe that the Bible is your word, and I accept this authority, and blah, blah, blah. And I just kind of tried to push myself over the edge to make it work. And that was disingenuous and a lack of integrity, honestly. And at the time, it was a weak thing to do, and I didn't really know how to stand up and say, this is what I think, in the face of the anxiety that it could cause both in other people and in myself. So that's kind of changed, and so I've apologized to Bethany. Said, I'm sorry for selling you a picture of myself that's not been true, and making it seem like I believe a certain thing. Or
yeah, I'm sure that was a heavy conversation when he finally had to come to Bethany and be like, you know what, I don't believe in God anymore, and I'm sorry that I am not the man that I portrayed myself to be when we were dating. You thought you were going to marry a man that was going to be like your spiritual leader and, lead us in going to church every Sunday, and lead us in reading the Bible every day, and lead us with praying for our kids and all of these things. And I'm sure for someone like Bethany, who again grew up in such a high control version of Christianity where, you know, keeping your faith is so important and valuable, that was quite a shock to her, I am sure. And I can just see that she is still kind of not really over that shock. I think she's probably going to be processing this for a long time, because in this moment, I do really sympathize with her. It would be really hard for me if I married someone that I thought was a Christian and then they came to me and said that they no longer believed in God. Because my faith is so important to me too. My faith is the one constant in my life. It has seen me through all the highs and lows in my life, and I feel like I have a more close relationship with God than a lot of Christians like Bethany do, in terms of like, you know, I view God as kind, and I view God as warm, and I view God as my friend. I don't view God as someone that I have to appease. And so it would be really sad and hard for me if my spouse no longer believed in God or saw God the same way as I did anymore. I'm glad that he apologized to her, and I'm glad that he was, you know, honest about like, yeah, that was a weak move on my part. I was not being a strong man by kind of leading you astray. So you know, she seems forgiving and receptive to that apology, and I think that is a real sign of maturity in Bethany that I was honestly surprised to see, because again, since she has created content like what I showed you before, where she was so adamant that, you know, non-believers cannot date Christians, or let alone even marry Christians, right? I am honestly, genuinely, pleasantly surprised to see that she is as receptive and forgiving as she is in this moment. So let's carry on.
And, you know, making it seem like I believe a certain thing or I'm a certain way in order to make you feel better, when I'm really not. Mm-hmm. So it's more about how's it been for you?
Yeah, I mean, thank you for sharing that. That is a lot to share. Mm-hmm. Does it feel okay to share?
Yeah, I feel like I just kind of rammed through it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good big deal. So
that's a huge deal. Yeah.
Acknowledge that. It's a big deal to acknowledge it. And I mean, I would say it's not something that I would have, like, I don't think when we got married I would have thought you were going in this direction, for sure. But I think maybe like a year or so into our marriage, just your interests and books and what you like to study and stuff, it was like, okay, I think that it was, you know, I could start to see that coming in. But I mean, we've had conversations about this sort of stuff. I've not been like totally in the dark for a while now, I would say. So I think that that's definitely been, I wouldn't say you've been like totally dishonest recently, maybe just
maybe at the very beginning.
Got the girl. Surprise.
Well, I didn't, it wasn't like the next day I was like, surprise, I'm an atheist. You just did it with the name.
I mean, yeah, people have a lot of questions about that, like what I think, what you think, how that works in our relationship. I think that we are uniquely gifted to love each other and work through a relationship like this. I think that even though it's hard for me, it does not, I am not like, I don't know, I have so much love for you, and it is emotional. A lot of people have wondered and have asked, like in the questions and stuff, how that is, and I am emotional, so we're just gonna roll with it, or else we'll never finish. I think that, like, when I think back to, I think this is something that, like, I really believe, like, when I think back to when we got married, I still look back and it's like, I have so much confidence that we're supposed to be together, and I have so much confidence that we are, like, super uniquely gifted to, like, really love each other. And I think we have a, like, I think that we, and people have told us, like, you know, that we sought counsel from and stuff, just have been so encouraging and supportive of how we've been able to, like, press toward each other and love each other and have these conversations and not just, like, run away from each other in fear or, like, separate, but we've been able to, like, grow. And even though it's hard, this big difference of ours now, like, I think we love each other more now than we did, you know, 3 weeks ago, a year ago, when we got married, obviously. And, like, my heart is filled with so much love for you, you know, and I want to be the woman with you. Like, I don't want to be anywhere else, you know, like, I don't want a different man. Like, I want to be with you in this journey, even though it is hard. I want to be with you.
I thought that was a really beautiful moment. I snark on Bethany a lot and I give her a lot of flack, but part of why I wanted to make this video too is because I did want to give credit where credit is due, and I think that was a very real, very raw, very honest moment, and very, very beautiful. I mean, I kind of got like a little misty-eyed when she was talking about how she thinks that she and Dave are uniquely gifted to love each other. I really love that phrase because I feel the same way with my husband too. I knew that I was falling in love with my husband when I felt in my heart that I would go on this mysterious journey of life with this man, no matter where it led, because we don't know the future, right? Only God knows the future. And I think that's what true love is. True love is unconditional, right? It's loving someone without any strings attached, without any conditions, without any rules or things that they need to follow. And I think Bethany just displayed that right here, where she was like, I just had so much confidence on our wedding day and leading up to our wedding day that we were meant for each other, and I want to go on this journey with you wherever it leads. I think that is really, really beautiful, and I am really, really proud of her for expressing that so honestly and openly and vulnerably. So again, giving credit where credit is due, that was a really, really beautiful moment. And part of what makes it so beautiful is that it shows the beauty of marriage. Marriage is supposed to be a picture of God's love for us, not from like a romantic sense, but more from what they just displayed, that unconditional choosing of that person, telling that person, hey, I choose you no matter what comes our way, no matter what curveballs life might throw at us, no matter what highs and lows we go through. That's why, the traditional wedding vows are, I take you to be my partner in sickness and in health, in good times and bad, for richer, for poorer, till death do us part, right? So that was just a beautiful portrayal of the love of Christ too, that unconditional choosing and acceptance of that person, because that is what Christ did for us, right? Like it says in the Bible, he chose us while we were still sinners. He died for us while we were still sinners. It is the unconditional love of Christ that saves us and that changes us and makes us want to give that love away in return. So I think marriage is a beautiful picture of the unconditional love of God, and I think Bethany and Dave showed it right here. So yeah, I'm just a little misty-eyed.
But it is hard. It's hard to think we are going to church together right now. Mm-hmm. And well, you are leading our family in like a morning devotional.
Yeah.
And you're just more careful with the words, like you say, like, this is what the Bible says, this is what the Bible teaches.
Yeah, I can tell Davey, because I'm thrilled if Davey's, learning about the Bible and all that. It's like, it's great, Yeah, but I'll say things like, the Bible teaches that God loves us or something like that, rather than like, oh, God loves us.
I mean, it's really sweet. I think that's the thing when you hear about like, oh, where like one couple deconstructs and the other doesn't. At least even having talked to friends and stuff, there can be a lot of like, I don't know, like even just that sort of stuff, like talking about the Bible or talking about Jesus or church can become like super high tension. But I've appreciated just like your maturity in that way of not being like, well, I'm not doing that, or don't teach the kids about that. You've been just like very, at least now, like seeing the value in the community of that, and just the value of at least our kids being there for now. And I think that, yeah, like Davey has such a genuine interest in like God and in the Bible, and I just really appreciate how you are willing to, like, I don't know, feed that interest or whatever. I don't know how you want to say it.
He might bring it up, when every what he does, he brings it up every so often. It's fun, It's great to hear him learning stuff, and
yeah. So I think that it's more like, when I think about it, I guess it's more those fears of like, what exactly does the future look like for us and for this? Because at this point, like, we both see ourselves like not, you see yourself more deconstructing and I see myself not, like in the sense of like, I see myself like, I don't know. I like being a Christian.
I like that Bethany included that part too, of how with deconstruction, especially within marriage, it kind of has to go both ways, that, you know, the person who is deconstructing needs to also give grace to the person who is not. So by that, I mean kind of like what she just said, that if you're the one deconstructing in your marriage, you need to have grace to your partner who still might be in the religion that you're leaving behind, and you need to not stomp all over that, not make them feel silly for still believing in God, not, you know, throwing it in their face and being like, I don't want our kids to go to church, I don't want our kids to read the Bible, I don't want us to pray over dinner anymore, I don't want us to whatever. I think grace needs to go both ways. I think the person who is still in the religion needs to give grace to the one who is outside of the religion too, and, you know, have an open mind and be like, okay, I'm, you know, willing to not talk about God as much. I'm willing to stop praying with you. I'm willing to do all of these things. So I think grace needs to flow both ways. So I like that she brought up that point.
I like that, trust in the Lord and stuff.
I guess maybe it'll be a competition of who can love the other person the best, and thereby making the best apologetic, the best argument for their view.
It's really sweet though, because I do have friends who like are in my position of like their husband's starting to deconstruct or whatever, and just like I just feel like you've been and continue to strive to just like love me so well and be so kind and sensitive and patient, and I am hoping to do the same toward you. Getting
up in the morning and being like, oh, I might not be a Christian. I find so far I find a heightened level of like, well, then everything that happens is it's like my responsibility. Like if I don't like something, it's like, it's on me. It's not, you know, I can't blame God for anything, you know? it's just, and I can't like spiritualize things like, oh, maybe God wants this hard thing to be happening to me in order to teach me something and stuff. It's like, if you don't believe in that, and you're not, then it's just like, oh, I feel crappy because I feel crappy and whatever. I don't know. Maybe there's a reason, maybe there's not. Maybe I need to eat something, maybe whatever. And maybe I need to confront myself about an issue that I have.
Yeah, so what Dave just said there about how, you know, oh, when I wake up in the morning, now that I'm no longer a Christian, I feel more in control of my day. And I realize that if I'm in a bad mood, if I'm feeling a certain kind of way, it's on me. I can't blame God. I can't be like, God, why are you giving me a hard time? You know, I can't blame the devil and be like, oh, the devil's attacking me. Like, it's on me now, how I control my day and how my day goes and how I feel about things. And that, again, kind of points to me that he kind of grew up in that very strict, very high control version of Christianity where everything was over spiritualized. And, you know, that means that like you see God in like every little detail. And of course, I believe that God is in the details of our lives, big and small. But by that, I mean like kind of what he just said. Oh, if I'm going through a hard time, it's because God wants to challenge me or test me or grow me or whatever. And it's like, no, sometimes you're just going through a hard time. Sometimes you just are having a bad day. Sometimes bad things happen and you don't know why. It doesn't mean that it's God's will to happen. It just, people just suck sometimes, and people do awful things, and it doesn't mean that God's trying to test you or challenge you. It just means that you were put in this world with a bunch of other imperfect people, and so of course imperfect things are going to happen. And so, you know, I found a lot of freedom when I kind of left that I found a lot of freedom when I left behind that kind of thinking, when I stopped kind of like Dave trying to over spiritualize everything. You know, I'd be the kind of person that would like pray about every decision, great or small, and, you know, try to invite God into my plans and everything like that. But then I realized, you know, if I believe that God is truly with me wherever I go, like it says in the Bible, right? God is God with us. The last thing that Jesus said to his disciples on the earth was, surely I am with you until the end of the age. So if I really believe that God is with me wherever I go, then I don't need to worry about inviting him into my plans. I don't need to pray over every single little detail of my life because God is already there, if that makes sense. So I wish that Dave found a more freeing version of Christianity, and maybe he will get there. I'm not saying he needs to become a Christian again. You know, again, his faith is his own, his journey is his own, but I hope that if he still finds value in Christianity one day, that maybe he will find a version of Christianity that is a lot more freeing, where you don't over spiritualize every single little detail and you don't try to look for answers in the chaos in life. You just embrace the fact that, hey, some things are just a mystery in this life that I may never know, but God is in the details, big and small. He is with me wherever I go. And so I don't need to stress out about so many things. I don't need to sweat the small stuff, but I can trust the one who holds the future in his hands. So not to psychoanalyze Dave, but he's kind of hinted at it in this video, and he's mentioned it in other videos, that he really, really places a lot of value on how people see him, and he knows like he can do that to where it's a fault, right? Where he places too much worth into what other people say or think about him. And so to me, he comes across as someone who very much wants to know that he's in control of his own destiny, know that he's in control of his own life, know that if he messes up, it's on him, know that if he does well, it's on him. He wants to find worth within himself just because he's worthy, not because of anything he has to do. And so I think that's why getting out from under the thumb of this version of God that was taught to him could be really freeing for him, because the version of God he was taught sounds like, you know, God is in control and you're just his little, like, you know, puppet, right? You're just a cog in the machine. You're just a piece of the puzzle, and that can feel very limiting for some people, right? It feels like you're not in control. It feels like you are just at the mercy of this, you know, higher power, this mysterious being that you don't really know. And so I can see how it would be really freeing for him to get out from underneath that version of Christianity, which sounds really oppressive. But yeah, we'll see where his future goes. I'm really invested now. But anyway, there are a few more minutes I want to unpack, so let's wrap it up here.
And I'm not living with my integrity or something, and I still very much hold to that. The integrity stuff hasn't gone away. I would say this is a step in the direction of more integrity, more honesty, even more strength in a lot of ways, I would say. And I've been like, well, we can get into some of the comments and stuff in the video, but there was a couple comments in particular that really landed with me, and that I've been taking as fuel to be able to grow and to do a lot better.
I mean, just from like wrapping this up, because I know a lot of people are asking questions about this part, like this, like people are asking like, what more are the differences? So he uses language and you don't. It's like
the cussing should probably be the least of your worries at this point.
It's more of like our difference in our faith journey, our belief in Christ and the Word, and like all of that. And yeah, like it's tough. Like it's, I'm not gonna pretend like I'm some superwoman and just like, it's like it's hard, and it's just like it is a lot, but I think I was telling you today, like we have so many things that we, like, even just when I think back to, like, I don't know, dating or whatever, it's like just like the stuff we love to do together, the unique relationship we have. I mean, that's one of the reasons, like, from the beginning when we started dating, I was like, I want to do YouTube with you, because I just, this is gonna sound so selfish, but it's like, I love our relationship. And I think we're like a super special couple. Like, I just think we have like a willingness to be real and open and like not putting on a show, and just like, just really like a fun relationship. And I just think that, not in like a teaching sense, but just like in a sharing our life sense, that's something that I just have really loved about us. And so it's like, yeah, would it be awesome if we both just like shared the same faith like super strongly, and just were like both felt so encouraged by that with each other? Of course, I think we both love that, whatever that.
Yeah, being on the same page, that'd be.
If I were like, yes, deconstruction, babe. I don't know.
I mean, it might have crossed my mind. Okay.
And if
I'll just have to make deconstruction look absolutely attractive, just like the most loving husband.
So yeah, I mean, I would say that in a year, I'm sure we'll have a lot more to say.
Oh man, can you imagine what happened in a week? What's gonna happen in a year?
I mean, it's like, I love our kids. I love you.
Yeah.
I love the life we're building together. I have so much excitement for just the family that we've been given, potentially in the future more, it's like just like the adventures, like we have so many dreams of like places we want to travel, things we want to do together, just like the kind of kids it's just all
like going to Costa Rica. Maybe.
It's just so special. So yeah, I think you have to look at your life, and anyone at any time, I mean, there are people who have a lot more in common than the two of us and who are way more miserable, It's like we don't have that in common right now, but the way that I don't know, it's just like your focus and where you're going and what you're doing, and I just at least that's what I choose to do.
Okay, I want to say Bethany, by far, the highlight of the highlights of 24 Hours with Bethany was Bethany.
No.
Paul and Morgan were great, of course, and but I just, and Bethany was, you were stunning. And just the kindness that you showed, and the just your understanding heart, and your ability to handle all the differences that we have and still speak in such a, just a lovely way about me and about our relationship. It was really beautiful. Mm-hmm. I'm so grateful for Bethany and her. She's really blown me away with just her kindness and her open heart. And
I love you so much.
So that is the last little snippet I want to react to, and I really like a few things that Bethany said. I like how she, first of all, said, there are couples who have way more in common than we do, but they are far more miserable than we are, something like that. And I think that's true. I think sometimes people are afraid of the fact that they don't have every single little thing in common with their spouse, or maybe there's someone you want to date, but you're like, oh, are we going to have this in common? Are we going to have that in common? And I think, kind of like what Bethany said, I agree with her. It's all what you focus on. If you choose to focus on your differences rather than what you have in common, then of course they're going to seem like these big mountains that you can't overcome in your relationship. But if you focus maybe on what you have in common, and focus on your love for one another and loving one another unconditionally, then those mountains become molehills for you to step over. I actually asked my husband one time what he would do if I ever came to him and told him I no longer believed in God, because he really values his faith too. It's really important to him. And kind of similar to Bethany, he was like, there's just so much more I love about you. I mean, would I be sad over the fact that we can no longer pray together or go to church together, or we don't share that in common? Yeah, of course, but your faith is your own. It's something we share, but it's also unique to you. Your own faith and your own journey with God is different from my faith and my journey with God, and so it's still deeply personal to you. And while I would be sad that we no longer have that in common, there is just so much more that I love about you that I wouldn't just throw away our whole marriage because we no longer share the same faith, And I think you have to consider that too when you are looking to someone to marry, because a lot of Christians place so much value on finding another Christian to marry, and that's great. And I think you absolutely should, have your faith in common. I think that is really important because it is so foundational for so many people. But I think too, you also have to be willing, like I said, to go on that journey of love wherever it leads. And so even if both of you start out as really strong Christians, but one of you kind of falls away like David's, I think if you really love that person, you will still be willing to go on that journey with them. And like Bethany said, you will choose to focus on other things. You will choose to focus on what you do have in common rather than what you don't have in common anymore. So I thought that was a really mature response from her. And yeah, I like that she also just kind of owned up to the fact that, like, hey, this is hard, but there's no one else I would rather be with. There's no one else I would rather do this with. I think that's really mature of her as well, and shows, again, the unconditional love of God, that unconditional choosing of someone, even when it's hard, even when you don't see eye to eye, because that is what God does for all of us. And so, yeah, it'll be really interesting to see kind of how this plays out. I am absolutely wishing the best for Bethany and Dave, and I love how he ended by just kind of honoring Bethany and kind of honoring how kind and how understanding she's been throughout this journey. Again, I didn't really get that vibe from the 24 Hours video, if I'm going to be honest, but I'm glad maybe behind the scenes she shows him a lot of kindness and understanding, and I'm glad that they made this video together where she did show that kindness and that understanding. So I thought that was really sweet that he took the time to kind of honor her publicly for her understanding and for her kindness. And I also like too that just how like affectionate they are throughout this whole video. You could see they were constantly like hugging and leaning on each other and holding hands and kissing each other and looking each other in the eye. I honestly think, after watching so many of their videos together, I honestly think this is the most chemistry that they have had together. And I think it's because they're both finally living authentically. You know, in marriage, in love, true intimacy, in my opinion, comes from letting someone see you authentically for who you are, being able to live as your authentic self in front of someone and being accepted just as you are. I think that is true intimacy, and so it makes sense that they would be now all of a sudden really affectionate and really cuddly and really lovey with each other, because I think they have reached a deeper, or I don't think I can see that they have reached a deeper level of intimacy within their marriage, where now Dave feels safe to fully be himself and express his true thoughts before Bethany. He no longer feels like he has to wear this mask of pretending to be this like super Christian guy. And I feel like she also has a deeper level of freedom to also maybe explore some avenues of her faith that she no longer wants to go down anymore. Like she said at the top of the clip, how she is deconstructing parts of her faith too. So she might also feel that freedom now to kind of live authentically and maybe go on that journey with him a little bit to explore her true feelings about her religion and love and marriage and God and all of that. Because like I said, I feel like the reason why Bethany kind of waffles back and forth between being like really hardcore fundy with Kristen on their Girl Defined page and then really like free and liberated with Dave, like here in this video, is because she is still learning herself after kind of leaving behind her family of origin, where they very much adhered to the rules of the Bible and they were very strict and rigid in their viewpoints. And I really hope that Bethany will kind of be able to continue to leave behind you know, some of her more restrictive upbringing. I hope that she won't really be kind of too swayed by her family to maybe try to convert Dave or try to get Dave to, you know, rethink all of this, because I think that can also be a danger when people deconstruct, is they're afraid that people are going to try to convert them or try to win them back to the faith. But I think when someone is deconstructing, you just need to let them go on that journey, right? Especially if you love them, you just have to let them go on that journey and just promise them that you will be by their side as their support system, and that you will choose to love them no matter what, no matter where that journey takes y'all, because that is the heart of the gospel. That is the heart of God, is that he loved us first. He loved us while we were still sinners, and he chooses us every day. And he leaves the 99 to go after the one, right? Like the parable of the lost sheep, the shepherd who had a flock of 99 sheep, and he saw that one was missing and went astray, and he left behind the 99 sheep in a pasture while he went and looked for the one lost sheep that had gone astray. That is a beautiful picture of what God does for each and every one of us, how he chooses us. And I think Dave and Bethany were a great example with this in this video, how they are kind of leaving behind the 99, right? They're leaving behind their family of origin, they're leaving behind their kind of restrictive views, and they are going after one another and going after their own versions of faith or lack thereof, but at least they are on that ride together. And I think that is a beautiful thing to see. So anyway, I would love to hear you guys' thoughts on all of this. I know it was a lot, but I hope to see you down in the comments, and I will find you there. And again, if you liked this video, please do give it a like. That lets me know that you do like it and you want to see more content from this. I promise, unless another earth-shattering video is dropped, my next video will not be about Girl Defined. I actually kind of wanted to do a fun video where I react to mean comments and assumptions about myself. I thought it'd be kind of a fun way to introduce myself to you guys a bit more, rather than just sitting down and filming like a traditional, you know, get to know me video. So anyway, that will be next. I promise. I already filmed it. I just need to edit it and upload it. But this one first, because this news is relevant and groundbreaking. So I promise my next video will be away from Girl Defined and all of that again, unless they release some other kind of bombshell. So we shall see. But I hope that you will join me here at the Lone Wolves Club before you go. Remember to subscribe down below and ring the bell so that you get notified anytime that I upload. So anyway, I will see you guys in the comments section. See y'all there.